Boston Celtics, I mean, Jake, what can you say? They absolutely decimated the Suns. They need to change their name to the Supernovas because the Celtics blew them up and blew them out. We're going to recap the game. We've got some juicy stats to get to as the Celtics continue to elevate themselves statistically. And, of course, the big one, the upcoming finals rematch against the Golden State Warriors, next on First to the Floor.
Who is going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives. That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body. Garnett knocked away.
Hey, welcome in. First to the Floor, Ben Vallis here. Hope you're doing well. I'm joined by one Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how you doing, sir?
Ben, I'm doing so well.
Yes.
It's Friday afternoon. Sun is shining in Sydney. I have a beer. I have a second beer next to the beer once this beer is finished. The Celtics are 21-5. Life's good, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I have one of my wife's seltzers because we've been away
Perfect.
for a week. I've come home, no beer in the fridge, but there was a nice cold seltzer in the back, so I'm doing okay. Meanwhile, the sun is absolutely belting down on my attic here, so if you start to see those little beads of sweat, it's not the nerves, it's just the insane heat up here in the attic. Anyway, let's get into it. This game, Jake, an absolute platter filled with Celtic treats. Phoenix was favored by 2. They lost by 27. The Jays combined for 50. Blake Griffin had another solid performance as a part-time starting center. No Al Horford. The Celtics, they're up by 45 at one point. And perhaps most importantly, we had the defensive coming out party. Jake, just starting broad here, mate. Like, what were the main takeaways for you from this one?
Man, if you better come with your A game against the Celtics right now. Because like I think this was a combination of the Celtics playing incredibly all around both ends and the Suns missing some shots. And if you just go cold for a quarter, the Celtics will have you questioning your existence as a franchise, as a human on this speck on this rock that we're on. Because that's the kind of stuff I was sitting from Suns Twitter. Like there was some doomsday type vibes because they already had that loss against the Mavs and it only got worse against the best team in the league. I was a little concerned going in once Al went into the protocol. DeAndre Ayton has been really good this year, really good last year. Was a starting center on a finals team that held his own against Joker, Giannis. Really, really impressive. And he had his lunch money stolen by Blake Griffin and Luke Cornett. Really unimpressive showing from him. And the complete opposite from the boys in green.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought this game appeared over with a minute to go in the first quarter. Like, that's how soon it was like, oh, man, the Celtics are going to run a train on these guys. Like, both teams, they were going at it early, right? Like, pretty evenly matched. Celtics, little trouble getting into their offense early on, and then a few deadly-looking CP3, Andre Ayton pick-and-roll possessions. And we're like, uh-oh, like, we've seen this before. Other teams, pick-and-roll tandems, picking the Celtics apart. Then CP3, he goes to the bench, and then cue the Celtics run. That was the rest of the game. The rest of the game just was a Celtics run. But for me, really to encapsulate the entire game, you've got to look at this defensive stretch from the middle of the second quarter. I'm going to run a clip here. And this is a stretch towards, the mid to late second quarter. We see a pick-and-roll attempt completely disrupted by Luke Cornett. Another entry pass to DeAndre Ayton, well defended by Blake. And then Derrick White comes over and just completely steals his marbles, resulting in a very time-taken transition three-point shot from Grant Williams. Again, Grant Williams, this time defending CP3 in isolation, directing him into drawing a very illegal screen from Derrick White as well. Again, Derrick White disruption. These plays are all sequential, by the way. This stretch is one play after another of the Celtics just completely locking down the Phoenix Suns in the mid to late second quarter. And at that point, if it wasn't considered over already, this really was the Celtics putting their stamp on the game and leading the Suns and their fans to some of those doomsday mindsets that you mentioned there, Jake.
Dude, we've seen it in spurts. The last 3 games, we have seen the defense start to heat up. And this is one of those second quarters that we saw similar to last season where you were just grinding these teams into dust. Now, I'm not sure. I didn't honestly expect us to have the capability to do that with Blake Griffin on the floor, with Ayton out there, as I said earlier. So truly impressive. And this is the type of defense, like that swarming. You've got Derrick White coming as soon as Ayton puts the ball on the ground. Bang, Cobra strike. We've got 2 guys now that are Cobra striking other opposing big men. It's just not fair. And so, there's a clip we might run later as well. But D White is guarding Devin Booker in isolation. A screen comes over and Devin Booker's like, no, just leave me with Derrick White. I don't want Marcus Smart. I don't want Jason Tatum. The last 3 games has been really impressive on the defensive end. And something that we know about playing on the road is that defense travels. Your shot, that's the old adage, role players make shots at home. The Celtics make shots everywhere because that's what they do this year. But, going into a really tough road trip, Brooklyn's been rolling without that Celtics game. Toronto bounced back with a nice win yesterday against the Lakers. To beat those 2 back-to-back, come into Phoenix, who had the second best defensive rating in the league coming in, best record in the Western Conference. And just shut their water off completely. Like Devin Booker was square in the middle of the MVP race. He's just not. They're not built to match up against the Celtics, kind of on either end. But the last person that Devin Booker wants to see is Jason Tatum, because you can't get around him and he's way too long for him to shoot over. And Jaylen Brown is locked in.
Let's talk about Jaylen. Yes. Yes, I mean, a quick post-game quote from Jaylen Brown on what led to the domination of the Suns. Per Adam Himmelsbach, he said, "I think defensively we started to get back into ourselves, like being able to lock teams up, suffocate teams. Tonight that showed." Jake, say more about Jaylen Brown, because I thought on both ends, defensively and offensively, he was just incredible, and that's been the case for the last 4 or 5 games at least.
I mean, he finally broke his no turnover streak by having one. So 3 games, 1 turnover. So that's one side of the ball. 5 for 5 from the line, up to 84% from the free throw line. But it's the defense. He's been good offensively. Even before he started really cooking, he was still, getting buckets. But now to see him lock in, and that's kind of always been the MO with Jaylen, is that he needs to be locked in. He can kind of get lost with the fairies a little bit. And that's why, we have one of the best playoff defenses. Like when Jaylen is locked in, and in the playoffs he is locked in, the defense isn't as much of a problem. He is going to lose someone off ball. That's just something that happens. Mm-hmm. But man, he was locked in. Devin Booker couldn't get past him, didn't want to see him. He's doing the thing where he's sneaking around. He's getting tip balls in passing lanes that are leading to fast breaks. He's getting more block shots. It's just a commitment. It's an overall commitment to the defensive end, and something that he's clearly thinking about a lot more than he was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I have here on my run sheet, make sure you get the stats of Devin Booker when defended by Jaylen Brown, of course. I ran out of time, didn't do that. But I think even just sort of anecdotally and vaguely having watched the game, any possession where Devin Booker was guarded by Jaylen Brown, he was put into an absolute torture chamber. Obviously, Devin Booker, great player. He scored every now and then, but for the most part, very consistently, crazy locked up by Jaylen Brown, right? He was just so intent on stopping Devin Booker from scoring.
Yeah, so I'm an NBA sicko, and unfortunately, my fiance now can name the end of the bench of the Celtics. For the audience that doesn't know, my dad's from Boston and my mum's from Australia. When she met my dad's parents, she was able to name the Larry Bird starting 5, and they were super impressed with that.
Nice.
Lucy can name Justin Jackson and Kabengele. I actually feel bad for her, but we were watching the Suns game, and she was like, "Oh, Devin Booker is so smooth." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean he's kind of top 10, top 12 guy now." He's like, "Oh, is he really rated ahead of Jaylen Brown?" Because she doesn't watch every Suns game and things like that, and she only sees the lens of Jaylen Brown. She's like, Jaylen's way better than Devin Booker. And I'm like, look, who am I to tell you that you're wrong over the past couple of weeks from what you've been watching on the TV screen, because he has been out of control. And now when you're matching it with the defense, because Booker's not an elite defender, he's improved immensely on that end. But he's just never going to be a 6'7" super athlete. That's just, you can't coach that. as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jaylen, this goes both ways, unfortunately, where his mind wanders and he does allow himself to get backdoor cut, and he does, give up some unfortunate defensive lack of efforts, I would say. But then it can swing the other way as well, where it becomes hyper-focused. And we saw it in his defense on Devin Booker. And also at the other end, going at Devin Booker. Like, Devin Booker was in foul trouble in this game. Jaylen Brown drew at least 2, like multiple fouls on Booker himself. Really just like on both ends made sure that Booker was kept active and was never able to take any possessions off at any stage. So really just a total end-to-end nullification of Devin Booker by way of Jaylen Brown torture. Incredible. One of the many enjoyable aspects of this game.
So much fun. Yeah, Devin Booker was not having a good time. That's for damn sure.
There was an awesome moment in the game, actually. Like, the Suns were already down really bad late in the second quarter, and then Jaylen went at Devin Booker in isolation, drew his 4th foul, right there. It was already so bad for Phoenix, and then just like bam, 4 fouls in the first half. Jaylen Brown cooking your boy. It was just spectacular. I feel like we can talk about Jaylen Brown all night. Actually, you look like you got something else you want to say. So get it out, and then we'll
it felt personal. It felt personal a little bit.
Totally.
And someone posted a clip of Grant in one of the interviews he did with Duncan Robinson in the offseason, and they were asking about, which Celtics players like the trash talk. And when he was talking about JB, he's like, JB doesn't really like to say too much unless you start talking to him. And apparently there was a Phoenix game where Devin Booker was talking to Jaylen, and kind of ever since then, he took that personally. And so now, hey, look, and Jaylen sees, hey, this guy could be one of my all-NBA competitors.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make an extra 60 mil here. Let's take his lunch.
Also, like, to harp back, the 70-point Devin Booker game on Avery Bradley and IT and those Celtics. I believe Al Horford was present for that game too.
I think Jaylen was on the team there, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Like, we talk about curses in the NBA. We talk all too often, unfortunately, on this pod, although we haven't recently, fortunately, about the curse of IT. There's got to be some cursey stuff there, Jake, right?
Surely.
With the whole Devin Booker celebrating scoring 70 points in a loss and then proceeding to get pretty much owned in every single encounter almost with the Celtics since then. What else defensively? Because I really feel like that is the focus. Like, if you just talk about the offense for a second, the main takeaway is it's just more of the same, right? Like, a lot of off-ball movement, a lot of everybody screening, and particularly the Jays, and just a completely selfless approach to team offense. Defensively, what else did you notice in this game that maybe you hadn't noticed in the first half of the season so far?
Man, it's an overall commitment. It's kind of a focus thing, and I think that there is something to the idea that a lot of energy and effort and focus went into improving the offense, and the way that they are playing on offense takes a lot like they're moving, they're cutting. No one is stopping at any point, and I just think that that's naturally going to have an impact on your defense. And I have not seen like anyone, not this podcast, not the various other content that I'm consuming, has been worried about the Celtics defense, because I know for a fact that Jaylen, Marcus, Tatum, all these guys are still really good defenders. It's a buy-in now, and it's just kind of been trending, right? Like, small sample sizes. Yeah, they were in the 20s for the first kind of couple of weeks, but it's been consistently moving in the right direction. Like, over the last 15 games, they are the 5th ranked defense, which I would be terrified if I was the rest of the league. Like, the offense continues to be awesome. Like, regression's coming for the offense. They only shot 33% from 3 in the first half, and they were up by 27 points. Mm-hmm. That was because of the defense that you just showed in the second quarter. The defense reminded me of how they play against Philly, because Phoenix was trying to take advantage of that Ayton matchup, as they should have, and they went to the pick and roll early, and they were able to take advantage of some switching, some miscommunication, but then up there, timeout, they cleaned that up, and they were getting hands in passing lanes, Luke Cornett getting his hands over for lobs, and then anytime Ayton was putting the ball on the ground or turning for a jump hook, there was a second defender right in his face. And basically from the middle of that second quarter, Ayton was like, this is too hard. We're not going to win this game. And that's kind of the player he's been throughout his career. kind of like Embiid in a way. It's like things start to go bad and they start to snowball. And the thing with the Suns is they're not very big, and the Celtics aren't playing huge this year. But Booker undersized versus the Jays. Chris Paul, he looked rough. As good as Mikal Bridges is on both ends, like he's just like a miniature sized version of Jason Tatum. So like they just overwhelmed them. It was like a tidal wave.
Yeah, and part of that overwhelming, like you mentioned, Jake, was the constant disruption of any action towards DeAndre Ayton. You mentioned Luke Cornett got his hand up there, and we showed it on that clip earlier, completely nullified a lob attempt to DeAndre Ayton. We also saw Grant Williams do that in one possession. We saw Tatum do that in one possession. Luke Cornett is a huge guy, by all standards. And by normal standards, Tatum and Grant are huge guys, but by NBA standards, they're in the middle of the field, I suppose. They were getting in there and disrupting those lob attempts to DeAndre Ayton as well, which tells me from a team defense perspective, like that's by design, and that was a point of emphasis for the team. And then not just the lob attempts, but just post-entry passes to DeAndre Ayton. We saw again in that clip he ran earlier, Derrick White getting in there, stripping the ball. We saw Blake Griffin disrupting, essentially everything that DeAndre Ayton attempted to do on both ends of the floor. And it was clearly, like I said, a point of emphasis for the entire team to nullify any impact from DeAndre Ayton. I was really impressed by how he was completely shut out by the Celtics. I have his stats here somewhere. Nope, they're gone. Maybe I don't have them.
Really good point from Sid Citrus in the chat here. So many steals in this game too, right? And so for the season, the Celtics are pretty much last in steals, which is really surprising considering how good the defense was last year and how active, how impactful so many of the Celtics players are at the point of attack. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, tiny sample size. I'm just looking at kind of quickly. Is it last 3 games? They are first in the league at 10.3 steals. So with the defense starting to get cranked up, these things are starting to flip the other way around. Let's see if I filter it to see last 15 games. They're in kind of middle of the pack. So like again, all of the defense is just trending in the right direction, and I just think that with how much energy and focus went into the offense, that the defense just lagged behind a little bit. And I think, man, they've just been blowing teams out by, or just kind of imposing their will, and it hasn't really felt like they're going to lose a lot of games. And so when they've needed the defense, they've cranked it up. The OKC game comes to mind, the third quarter against the Raptors, the whole game against the Nets. Even the Grizzlies game comes to mind, like late in that game, Tatum switching onto Jar and blocking him. Yeah, the defense has been there when they've needed it, but now to see it them have that for the entire game across, 4, 5, 6 games in a row, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to continue on that, just the knowledge of any particular opponent's preference of how they like to run their offense or through who they like to run their offense, and then the complete nullification of that emphasis from that team. So in this case, it was the nullification of the Suns' stars. So CP3, 2 of 6 shooting, 4 turnovers, just 4 assists. Obviously limited minutes because everyone sat in the fourth quarter. There was essentially like 15 minutes of garbage time in this game. Devin Booker, 6 of 17 shooting. A team worst, minus 40, as one of our mates called out in the chat earlier. And then DeAndre Ayton, this is the stat I was looking for earlier, just 4 of 7. And 7 shot attempts, I think, is the key there. Like, for him to only put up 7 shots in this game, also just 7 rebounds. He was out-rebounded by Blake Griffin, 4 turnovers, no blocks, so like no like notable rim protections from DeAndre Ayton. Both ends of the floor for all of those, the quote-unquote stars, which you can at least attribute that title to CP3 and Booker. Like, completely nullified in this game. I think I've said the word nullified like 20 times already in this podcast, but that's the theme. That's exactly what was done to the Suns, among many other things. And then just suffocating ball pressure. Like, if you, NBA League Pass have a really great way of rewatching games, which is you can filter it by all possessions and cut out all the fluff. And watching it on sort of fast forward like that, it's almost overwhelming, even as a Celtics fan, just to see like how busily defended the Suns are and how much pressure there is on the ball from the Celtics defensive perspective. It's incredible. Definitely the best defensive performance of the year. And then similar to the Raptors game, Jake, and what Jason Tatum said after that game, along the lines of like playing this way, it's just a choice that the team can collectively make. And it seemed like, I don't know, they made that choice at halftime of the Raptors game, and then they have not taken their foot off the gas. Despite all the golfing they did before the Suns game, they've managed to like maintain that sort of mental focus and intensity, and really just incredible to watch, right? Like we've been, if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen our happy faces for weeks now because it's been incredible. And this somehow the Celtics just took it to a whole new level. And Jake and I, if you're watching, like clearly just some of the happiest fellas in the world right now. Jake,
I mean, I'm glad that we're not the players, right? I'm glad that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart are essentially Brad Stevens clones at this point.
Yes.
Like, it's not too high, not too low. One game, your season's not over. If you know that's not going to make or break them. It's just like locked in, building habits, like all the Bradisms. I love it so much. Joe Mazzulla talking about Brad Stevens clones. Like, he's basically a Brad Stevens clone. He's maniacal. He's so focused on the details. Like he's starting to get a little funny in the post games. And if we run that clip a little later, like he was pretty funny in the post game last night, trying to manage everybody's minutes. But yeah, this is just the golf trip is good. I like that. I thought that was because remember, like, was it the bubble when they were playing a lot of golf and there were Celtics fans that were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they would be playing golf." So I'm just noticing some bots in the chats here.
Blocked.
Come on, Elon, move over to YouTube and help us out here. Like there were people that were legitimately like, "How dare you play golf on a day off?"
I know.
It's like, I'm not sure if you've heard of this guy called Michael Jordan. He used to play a lot of golf with our friend Danny Ainge. Like these guys are allowed to walk around. Like you can't be watching film and getting shots up the entire time. But to see those photos of Blake. By the way, there's a photo of Blake. They're all laughing, but the bicep vein in the right arm.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. I know you're a big
staying
dimensions guy. And so like to see that, and I'm a big bicep vein guy in general. Mine's on my left arm. You can't see it in the video right now, obviously. But yeah, he's looking good. And because he had to play a second game here. That's not part of the Blake, retirement home plan that we've got him on. But he's all good. That day out in the sun in the Phoenix weather did him some good.
That's actually going to be my next video on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. It's a breakdown of the dimensions and the vascularity of Blake Griffin's biceps. So stay tuned for that. We are jumping around the page a little bit here, which I think, Jake, is fine and just speaks to our excitement for the Celtics and particularly how they pulled out the victory in this game. So perhaps we can just sort of sit back and talk about this for a second. The ultimate moments of ponage in this particular game, because there were like the whole game was one ultimate moment of ponage.
Yes.
11 minutes or so left in the third quarter. Tatum pulls up for a superstar three to go up 32. Then Blake Griffin and his huge vascular biceps immediately draws a charge on the other end, like just to further emphasize the dominance. Or maybe it was halfway through the third when Jaylen fed Tatum down low with a nifty low bounce pass, and then Tatum hit them with this high velocity turnaround MJ Kobe style fadeaway. Then the Celtics get a stop and Tatum comes straight back down, bang bang, double crossover, and sticks the three to go up 39. And just side note, there were some really, really nice passes from Jaylen Brown to Tatum, sort of post-entry passes, bounce passes in this game. One more.
Keep going. Don't stop.
It was the Marcus Smart back-to-back steals with 5 minutes to go in the third. The second one was just completely taking Chris Paul's marbles and making him look like an old, confused man. And immediately followed by Jaylen Brown's pull-up three to go up 45. 45 points, Jake. Incredible. Can you add anything to that? I feel like those are the three most key moments of ponage. Segment title, working title. Sorry, go ahead.
The scoreboard was just like, even the announcer was having trouble with the maths. Like, it's well covered on the podcast. I struggle with numbers, and I was having issues trying to figure out Like, how do I need to be stressed? How, like, are we up 34? Are we up 44? Like, it was honestly confusing at times. My moment of ponage was, as you said, like, it was kind of late in the first quarter where this one kind of felt like it was over. Tatum goes out. And if you're a Suns fan, if you're a Suns player or a Suns coach, like, okay, we've survived the starting lineup. Oh crap! Here comes Derrick White. Lead gets extended. Oh crap! Here comes Malcolm Brogdon. Oh no! Now it's Brogdon, Tatum, Derrick, and like it just got worse and worse and worse. I was like, there's no let up. Like the bench lineup with Tatum and Brogdon is just so unfair. Like if you play the Celtics even, and then the bench lineup comes in, I don't understand what you're supposed to do. That was the moment for me where it was like it's just waves. Starting lineup, first sub, second sub, third sub. I was like, oh cool. Maybe Luke Cornett's not going to be as good as Blake Griffin. Surprise, he's actually better than Blake Griffin. It's just like what are we supposed to do?
Strange times, right? That's a sentence. That's a valid sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Tatum and the bench lineups are a known phenomenon, and they have been for at least a season. Jaylen Brown on the bench is a new emerging trend, and that was sort of, I mentioned right up the top there, Jake, that the first moment of the game where it was like, oh man, the Celtics are going to run away with this. Right after CP3 checked out with a few minutes left in the first, Tatum also goes to the bench, and it's Jaylen and the bench lineup, and it felt like every possession began with Jaylen Brown grabbing the rebound, pushing so hard in transition. And I think per cleaning the glass, the Celtics 23% of all of their possessions came in transition, and they were hugely successful out of those possessions. And so much of that was Jaylen Brown either off makes or off misses, pushing the ball super hard, and then technically entering into a sort of a half-court offense scenario, but the Phoenix defense never had an opportunity to get properly set, and Jaylen Brown took advantage of that every single time. It was absolutely incredible, and his playmaking is really, really starting to come along, and it feels less dangerous, less risky when he starts to, say, run pick and roll as the ball handler, for example. And I thought that Blake Griffin did a really good job as the roll man and sort of providing just enough distraction and attracting just enough attention rather from the defense to allow Jaylen Brown to work out of that. And suddenly his passing in those scenarios is crazy reliable, and it's a small sample size, so I'm not going to sort of rest on our laurels there, Jake, but it's something that I'm excited to see more of as I guess Jaylen Brown progresses and as the season matures.
He is playing so well right now. Like he is right now. He's a second team All NBA lock as of today. Like, and I think coming into the season, I was someone who wanted him to get All NBA because that increases our ability to re-sign him. He's going to deserve it, right? Like if he keeps doing what he's doing, he is the ultimate Kaizen warrior. And if you don't know the Kaizen warrior story, Brad Stevens' favorite book it's Kaizen. Basically, it's the art of continual improvement. And Jaylen is the encapsulation of the growth mindset, the Kaizen warrior. Whether it's the free throw, the fact that he's up to 84% on free throws this year. I know I got blamed on Twitter today that if he goes 0 for 6 in the Warriors game, it's going to be my fault. That's fair. That's fair. That could be my fault. But the fact that he's heard the turnover criticism, and he seems to be. I don't know what it is, man. Like he really over the past 2.5-3 weeks has flipped a switch, because he was relatively divisive on Twitter right now. Like. For which is ridiculous, by the way. He's already proven that he can be a championship level number 2, but he's proven to be like one of the best number 2s in the league without doubt right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good to see. I have very few criticisms of this team, which we'll get to in a second if we do have any between the two of us, Jake. Lots of people in the live stream here, so shout out to everyone joining us on the YouTube live stream.
Hello.
We love having you guys hanging out with us. We're reading all of your comments. We're bringing them up on screen. Go ahead and hit that like button, which I know is like a YouTube cliche, but doing so helps us with the algorithm. So if you're sitting there watching, click that mouse button. It's a twitch of the finger. That's all you have to do. Jake, any criticisms of the team at this juncture in the season? Because I know that heavy minutes load on the starters has been one. Al Horford gets quote-unquote rest with hopefully asymptomatic COVID, and then neither Jay played more than 29 minutes in this game. In fact, no one played more than 29 minutes in this game, largely in part due to it being over, like I said, with a minute to go in the first quarter. Any criticisms, Jake? Which is probably the hardest question I'll ask you.
That's the only one, and I'm gonna play Joe Mazzulla's post game here because it's absolutely hilarious. And they're asking him about how he's managing the minutes because the questions are a little muffled on the audio.
How do you know when to take guys out?
I don't.
And how are you learning about that? And then you put Jaylen in for the first 2 minutes of the fourth, up 35. Why did you do that?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm still learning that, so I have to get better.
That's amazing.
How good is that? That's incredible.
Learning.
He's like, why did you have Jaylen in there? And he starts thinking about it. I don't know. And I would recommend going to watch all the post game stuff last night because it was really, really good. But he goes on to just say, we want to make sure we're playing the right way. We're paying attention to the details. We have things we want to work on. And it's so funny that that's his mindset when they're up 40 points in the third quarter. He's still focused on was that switch good? Is our spacing still good? That wasn't the right shot. It's fantastic. And I think if that's our only criticism, that's okay. I guess we just need to go up by 40 plus, and then that's how we get Joe to actually become comfortable with resting those guys. But outside of that, Grant was kind of the only player that wasn't I think playing at his peak kind of level right now. But yeah, unless you have any other negatives, we can kind of move on from there.
Well, no, let's move on to the individual performances, and we can start with Grant Williams, who was super efficient, 6 for 6 from the floor. That's good for per cleaning the glass, Jake. 233 points per shot attempt per 100 possessions. And awesome defense. We saw in one of those clips that we ran him playing a one-on-one defense against CP3 in isolation and completely locking him down and forcing a turnover. I think Grant Williams is starting to emerge from his funk. And while he may not be featured as heavily in the offense, there's not a lot of corner office talk on Twitter, right? For every game. But I feel just as far as finding his groove within the construct of the team, I feel that's really improved. And so for that, you can say that Grant Williams has emerged out of that funk. Do you?
Yes.
Sounds like you don't agree.
No. I definitely do agree. So I may have been frowning just because the sun's your attic's heating up, and my room is also, the sun is coming into my eyeballs. No, Grant's been really good lately. I think both the Nets game and the Suns game. I could be getting the Nets and the Raptors game confused here, but he had the first 7 points for the Celtics, and it was true last night. He had a 3 and 2 drives. He's being more aggressive, and he's starting to, his new little move is the fake handoff drive, the Kelly Olynyk, the Draymond Green. And it's a really powerful move because there are so many players on this team that have elite gravity, especially Jaylen, especially Jason. But defenses are worried about Derrick White and Brogdon coming around Grant Williams' handoffs because they're able to get downhill, they're able to pick it, they're able to pop and shoot. And there's been several occasions now where he's faking the handoff and going straight to the rim, and he's tough to kind of deal with down low. He's a thick boy. And so he's getting his shoulder into guys. He got Devin Booker yesterday. Again, this Suns team, they're not burly. They're not burly boys. And Grant Williams is if nothing, he's burly, And to see him be aggressive, because look, and again to Grant's credit, he's been starting. He's been coming off the bench. He hasn't been, and he's still we forget he's still a young player. And last year was really his first year of a consistent role for a lot of the year, where he mostly came off the bench. And, Mazzulla's asked him to do both, depending on the matchup. And the last couple of games, to see him be aggressive and be the person that kind of breaks the seal at the beginning of the game, that can often be really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very happy with Grant. Both ends. I think he's really found a groove, and perhaps I'm very much nitpicking here, but the fact that we were celebrating him so much early in the season, and now he's almost operating behind the scenes in like how he contributes. It's more role player-y, for lack of a better term. I think that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
We're allowing the players who have a more prominent skill set to feature more on both ends, and Grant's is kind of doing his thing in the shadows.
Yeah,
like Batman.
I do think an unintended consequence, or maybe intended consequence of that, is that he's not able to showcase and expand his game too much, which potentially does lower his market in restricted free agency, because I think that he's literally the only person on this roster right now that isn't locked up for at least 2 more years after this one. And so I don't think that would be like they're intentionally shrinking his role and shrinking his shots and his touches, but it is kind of a good thing in a way.
Who else would you feature for individual performances? And I got to say, the caveat is like obviously the Jays, but like if we covered them on every single individual performances segment, it'd just be about them every episode. So we're they're implied, and we're moving on to role players, I suppose. So who else would you feature, Jake?
I have a good one for you. It's Malcolm Brogdon, and what was he yesterday? He's absolutely cooking from
7 of 9 from the field.
Yeah, like he played 19 minutes yesterday, 16 points in 9 minutes, 5 assists, 3 boards. Like since coming back from the hamstring injury, he is playing at an absurd level. He is the 6th man of the year right now. Obviously, I'm biased due to some financial incentives there, but the fact that he's coming off the bench and the hamstring appears to have not been a big deal. And what is incredibly, good about the situation, about being 21-5, you can be patient with Rob, you can be patient with Brogdon. Oh, you feel a little tweak, you could probably go back in. Have a week off. We have this kid, Peyton Pritchard, who cooked the Brooklyn Nets in the first round last year. He can fill in for you admirably. But now that he's back and playing like peak Brogdon, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with this guy, because not only is he getting to the rim at will, he's building chemistry with that bench unit. He's finding people off the catch. He had one beautiful kick out in the Nets game to, I want to say, Horford. Maybe, I think it was Horford, just like driving 3 guys, crash in, because he's one of the best drivers in the league. Like per 75, like his rim pressure is like second to none. And so people are very, very hyper aware of him, and they're crashing down, and he's just making easy passes out to really good shooters. And yesterday was no different. 7 for 9, 2 for 4 from 3. Like he's unfair.
He's also the league leader in 3-point percentage, like overall, not just players off the bench, not from guards, everyone. He's leading the league in 3-point percentage at 49.4%, and obviously shot 50% to help bolster that stat yesterday. So it's incredible, because I was almost going to say it feels Neesmithy, which it doesn't, right? In the sense that like they give you, hear me out, they give you something that you weren't expecting. Like Neesmith was sort of profiled as this incredible shooter. I can't believe I'm doing this.
The Neesmith-Brogdon comparison.
Yeah. Came in, he gave us everything but that, right? He gave us hustle. He gave us, grittiness, nose to the ball, balls to the wall, that kind of stuff. Never really the 3-point shooting. And yes, Malcolm Brogdon has exhibited plenty of the, especially driving left, breaking down the defense, really good zone breaker along with Jason Tatum, which really helps. But now he's exhibiting this incredible 3-point shooting that I don't think has been that prominent in his career thus far. I know he was a 50, 40, 90 guy at one point in his career, but like it's not like when he was acquired by the Celtics, shout out Brad Stevens, we were like, yes, like it's a real bump to our 3-point shooting numbers, right? Like I don't think that was anyone's first reaction, and like here we are, he's leading the league in 3-point shooting, and that speaks to his place in a very, very well-constructed roster. And that, of course, you should be paying attention to Malcolm Brogdon on the arc, but there's so many other threats in the Celtics offense at any given time, including Blake Griffin, apparently, that you have to sag off of him and give him these opportunities, and that's what we're seeing. It's incredible. Who else you got? Who else you got from individual performances? I'm trying to cue you up, Jake, because I know you've got this very spicy Derrick White clip queued up. We've also got Articulate Rich in the chat here, who's begging us to talk about Sam Hauser. So I promise we will pull some Sam Hauser figures for you, Articulate Rich. But have you got anything further on Malcolm Brogdon, or do you want to move on to Derrick White?
No, I think that he's figured out his role. It's just come in and be aggressive, get downhill, pull up threes. Like the pull up three numbers, maybe we have a look at those at the next episode, because it feels like he's just absolutely on fire from pull up threes. He had one in the corner, which felt like from behind the backboard last night. The confidence, and it makes sense that a lot of these percentages are going to be high in this offense, because their looks are better than you're going to be getting on the average offense. And Brogdon's getting to go against worse defenders than he's gone against, in years, So, but yeah, we can leave Brogdon behind, and we can move on to my mistress.
Just quickly, he's 40. Your mistress. He's 47% on pull-up threes in this season with 1.5 attempts per game. 50% on catch and shoot threes. Incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
That's good. Those
very
are good
good
numbers. Those are very good numbers. So Derrick White, if you're following us on socials, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I've been like desperately in love with Derrick White, even last year, but especially this year.
Head over heels.
Head over heels. Maybe the mistress is you're gonna have to be my nickname for him. But I've got some clips from last night of Derrick White. So starts off with Booker waving off Tatum. Derrick isolation forces a ridiculously difficult layup on Booker. Miss. And he just does all the little things that we love. Just always on the defensive board, pushes the pace, makes a simple outlet pass to Tatum for an easy layup in transition. Nothing fancy, but just like great glue guy stuff. And this is just perfect. Ayton post up, puts a ball on the ground, strip. Again, pushing the pace. We saw this clip earlier, but get your paint touch. Find Grant in the corner. Not the best pass. Grant knocks it down. Corner office is back in business. We get the Grant Williams kiss of death. Absolutely beautiful. And this is one of the best plays of the game. The off-ball action, all four players cuts. Blake gets the screen. Beautiful pass from Marcus in the far right corner. Bang. Catch and shoot. Same possession. Booker's bringing the ball up the court. Gets a screen. Derrick White steal. It's just like it doesn't stop with this guy. Transition, finds the lane, cut, fake, dump off to Cornet for two. Like he does literally everything. You need him to run some pick and roll, he can do it. You need him to just catch some outlets, stand in the corner, knock down some threes. You want him to defend the best player on the opposing team. Yeah, Jason, take some time. Catch your breath. I'll lock down Devin Booker for you. Not a big deal. We're playing the Bulls. That doesn't work. Literally every other team. I'll take your power forwards. I'll take your point guards. I'm happy to do it. I'll chase around Steph Curry, which we're going to see this weekend. He is perfect. To have Marcus Smart 2.0, to have the multi-pronged Cobra Strike attack employed by Joe Mazzulla. It's just ridiculous. And he's never like, if Malcolm Brogdon wasn't on this team, he's going to be bloody sixth man of the year.
Yeah.
Sorry,
absolutely. No, I mean, I don't think I can add to that. The only thing I wanted to say is in the last play in that clip, just to satiate, articulate Rich in the comments here's thirst for Sam Hauser content. It was a great feed by Sam Hauser on that final play. And just quickly on Hauser, yes, his 3-point shooting efficiency, or at least volume, has dropped, and I think that just speaks to the league's awakening to Sam Hauser and what he means and his abilities, and just working to sort of close out and defend him a little harder. But the fact that he's able to make those passes and to execute, out of closeouts and make the right play and defend, I'll say somewhat competently and somewhat effectively when teams try to target him on the other end, it's going to keep him on the court, and it's going to keep him impactful, despite the fact that we're not seeing, house money 4, 5, 6 times a game. So anyway,
Well,
I didn't want to deviate too far from Derrick White, but I had
it's fine.
to satisfy our listener there.
It's fine. No, and look, I've been calling it the house trap, and teams think that they can go at Sam Hauser just one-on-one, and like, ironically, Ben, we deleted the Sam Hauser defense clip from our little queue here from the last podcast, but he locked up Siakam last game. Like, we can, Bradley Beal, Siakam. There's a lot of guys this year that have tried to take him one-on-one. Gabe Vincent, like these role players, they see this white guy that shoots, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get some buckets. And he's 6'9", athletic enough, and he's surrounded by really smart, intelligent defenders that are not only in the right positions to help him, but he's learning from them every single day. I like that he gets on the boards as well. Like, he's never going to out jump anyone, but he's 6'9". He gets on the defensive boards, and a lot of that's just effort. This moves. Yeah, look, I could go on, but Rich, you got me. You got me good.
This could be a very long podcast because obviously our hearts are full of Celtics glory at this moment in time, or we could, I think, go on, Jake, for hours, but we've got other things to do, so we are going to move on. Other individual performances in this game, Derrick White, probably the main call out, and I will say on Derrick White, per cleaning the glass, White had a 9% steal percentage in this game, which means of all defensive possessions in this game, on 9% of total defensive possessions, they ended in a Derrick White steal, which is absolutely insane. Blake Griffin, 90% field goal defensive rebounding percent, which is insane. He rebounded 90% of the Suns' misses. 9 points, all from 3, mind you. And he had the amazing, I don't know if you saw it, Jake, like the teacup celebration.
Oh, no, I didn't notice that.
Threes. So good.
I didn't notice. Oh, the Robin Lopez. Okay.
Yeah. And 9 rebounds, hustle plays during charges like we referred to before. Blake Griffin might be the most elite part-time employee on the planet Earth right now. He is so good. And not that I want it to be something that we have to rely on, but, if Al Horford needs to rest, if he's got COVID, whatever it might be, I can handle a night or 3 of Blake Griffin kind of like chipping in and doing his thing. And, we've seen the vibes from the bench. If combined with a successful on-the-court performance, he's also bringing the vibes and the celebrations on the court. That's like maybe one of the ultimate forms of the 2023 Celtics. I love it. I love the Blake Griffin effect.
Oh no, Brad's a wizard all around. Like not only the fit of these guys on the court, but my dad calls it the no dickhead policy. And Brad learnt from his time with Kyrie, Tristan Thompson. Those are the first 2 that come to mind. These guys are really, really good dudes and are really, really well respected by the league and clearly by the guys in the locker room. And when, for example, Grant's going into negotiations for restricted free agency, and let's say, you do 26 million that Al was getting paid minus the 10, that leaves 16 million that they're offering to Grant Williams, for example, and he gets offered 20 million by the Orlando Magic. There's going to be Blake Griffin in his ear, Malcolm Brogdon in his ear, being like, yeah, dude, look, $4 million extra is a big deal, but look, your quality of life here is a 10 out of 10. Like that stuff has a serious impact. Like I always compare these guys to the Warriors, and having veterans on the team like Blake Griffin, not like kind of purely for vibes, but apparently it's not just purely for vibes because he's 5-0 now as a starter. 5-0 now as a starter. Blake Griffin in the year 2022 of our Lord. It's impressive stuff. And so, look, I mean, what can you say about Blake? 4 from 5 from 3? Like, you're going to leave him wide open. He can knock down some threes. He did it to us in the playoffs in the first round last year.
It's the basketball IQ as well. Like, he can't jump over a Kia anymore, but, he brings it on the court every night. And, we talk about the per 36 charge numbers, which I don't have, but I'm sure they're elite.
Oh, they're elite.
Yeah, you bet your ass. And just everything that he brings, both on and off the court, like we already talked about, is incredible. Moving on from offensive individual performances on either end, really, offensive, defensive, spicy stats. So one of the great things about your team performing at such an elite level is that the internet comes together after every game and updates you on, just how incredible and unprecedented the stats are, either for your team as a whole or for players individually. So Jake and I have, without conferring with one another, have gathered some stats from the internet and are going to go toe-to-toe and deliver stats to and fro just to further build the hype from around this team. Jake, do you want to go first?
Look, Ben, this part of the homework assignment, I didn't do super well on. So,
I did very well, so I could throw some stats at you.
Like,
I got a few. So, that's all right.
Yeah,
we'll get your reactions to these stats.
You go first, because then I can go second.
Per StatMuse, the Celtics average the 7th most field goals made per game in the league, while being just 21st in attempts. These are in no particular order, people, but I thought that was an interesting takeaway. Thank you, StatMuse. Any thoughts, Jake?
The Celtics are really, really good.
Yeah. Yes.
So, do you want me to? I got one for you, but I've already said it today. I've already said it today, but this is the thing right here. This is like how you win 65 games and so last 15 games, the Celtics have the 5th best defense. That is terrifying. If you're the rest of the league, it was like, okay, cool, they're gonna have the best offense in the league. But now that the defense is top 5, like you're just gonna get ground into dust. So I've been keeping my eye on that very religiously. The little sample sizes and the trending in the right direction. But yeah, so that's my one. And then while you do a new one, I'm gonna find a cool one in the meantime.
They're not hard to find, and I've got a lot on the offensive and defensive ratings, so I may repeat what you just said. So again, per StatMuse, the Celtics offensive rating this season: October 119.0, November 120.8, since Thanksgiving 124.0. The best offense of all time is getting better. Like, we already had the best offense of all time, and it's becoming, again, the better offense of all time. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, this is the thing. Like, last night, the shooting in the first half was, again, like at 33%. These guys are loaded with guys that can attack the paint, shoot, create plays for their teammates. And then when you're ramping up the defense, and then they have elite transition finishes. We ran through Tatum's transition numbers the other day. They're up by like 20-25% as well, across the board. And then you're adding guys like Hauser to the mix, a guy that they've kind of missed on the roster for years now, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna try and shade off. I'm gonna try and stop Tatum. He's finishing at a 70. Yeah, there we go. If you haven't listened to the podcast recently, Tatum's finishing 76% in the restricted area, which is better than Giannis Antetokounmpo, which I'm not sure if you know. Very good at finishing at the rim, typically.
He's all right.
Yeah. So, kind of a big deal that Tatum's doing that.
Yeah. Okay. I have more. I have to preface this one with a little explanation. So, SRS is simple rating system, and it's a player evaluation metric that mainly focuses on plus minus. So, with that in mind, this is from Danger Cart, Ryan Bernardoni. The Celtics SRS is now over 9.0. Were they to maintain that through the season, they would be the 15th team to do it since 1971, 1972. 9 of the previous 14 went on to win the title, including the 1986 and 2008 Celtics. And 2 played each other in the finals in 1972. But that's pretty spicy, because we're starting to look towards like, oh, hang on. And like, we're big on like jinx culture here and not wanting to jinx things and ruin things for everybody. But like, when you start to read things like that, you're like, hang on a second, is it time to look forward to like raising batters and, booking flights to Boston in June and stuff like that? These are the sort of stats that are starting to emerge.
Well, I don't know how you can't. Look, the stats, they speak for themselves. Like it's quite obvious. And, you go back to last year, they were by far the best team in the league. the offense was one of the best offenses in the league from January on. I just think it's hard for people to let go of what they saw offensively in the Miami and Golden State kind of part of the playoffs, because it was traumatic. There's no question, it was traumatic. But you know what they did? They added Malcolm Brogdon. Sam Hauser now plays. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just aged, because that's just what happens to humans. And they are still insanely young, so they got better again. And if you know anything about these guys, they just come back better every single year. So it's like, it's not that surprising in a way. I think as we kind of had our expectations tempered, but you could kind of see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. I just realized that we're almost an hour into this pod and still have a lot to get to. So I'm gonna choose one more stat here. This is from Sean Grandy, the voice of Celtics Radio. The Celtics have won now 8 of 9, and during that span, the best NBA offense in the history of ever, with 1.199 points per possession. Also, the league's 4th best defense, which I think you touched on earlier, Jake. And then just overall, like looking through the season, I know like previous podcast we were talking about that we had like the 27th ranked defense while having the 1st ranked offense. Just looking through the whole season, not even truncating that to 5-10 games, whatever it is, we have the 9th best defense in the league with 110.8 defensive rating, and of course still the best offense currently at 119.9. Jake, should we move on to post-game vibes? I think we've got some post-game clips that we can run and celebrate the Celtics' internal vibes coming out of this game.
I mean, let's do it.
We got some clips to run. Am I going to cue them up?
Oh no, I was like, what should we start with? Because I think the Tatum post-game really speaks to how far he's come throughout his NBA career. So I'm going to run that now.
But, I think everybody in the locker room understands what we're trying to do. We realize that, we got the best record. We 21-5. With that comes, a decision every night to play the right way, play as hard as we can on both ends. But I wouldn't say we playing angry. We having a lot of fun. But I think, the goal is still the same, get back to the finals and get over that hump. So, while we're having fun and, happy the way we playing, nobody in that locker room is, celebrating or satisfied, where we're at. None of this means anything if we don't, hang a banner.
Yes, just contrast how he sounded and looked and how we sound and look. Like, we're, like, just on the moon right now, and he's just like, look, if you didn't tell me, they could have lost. I don't even know. Like, and that's where these guys are at. Not too high, not too low. It's just we're focused on getting. And what I love about it is that they're focused on getting better. And if you listen to the post game again, I would recommend listening to it. Later in the interview, he talks about building championship habits. That's what this is all about. Like, they understand that you grow throughout a season, and you get, like, they saw it last year. Like, this is just the beginning for these guys. Look, there's going to be, there might be an injury, there's going to be a lull, like, and more COVID, whatever it may be. But that's fine. It's just, you're sticking with the process. You stay together. You're focused on your goal. The fact that he's like, none of it matters if we don't hang a banner. I would just, like, as a life philosophy, be like, no, it does matter. Like, you're doing a really good job in this world, Jason.
Celebrate the minor victories.
Yeah, I will still love you if you don't win the title this year. But like, these guys are locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. One other post-game vibes clip that I have to run before we move on. This is from the NBC Sports Boston post-game show. Got to check this out.
Meanwhile, plenty of celebrating going on out there in Phoenix. There's a look at Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart doing their best Tootsie Roll. I'm being told by our producer that it was apparently 90s night down there at the Footprint Center. All the good vibes happening. Marcus Smart really getting into it, okay, because he has been working on this Tootsie Roll for a long time. So,
look at that. That is amazing. I'll have everyone know I'm already working on a new version of our intro video that, of course, includes the Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart Tootsie Roll, which I will not attempt to to reenact myself. Suffice to say, the vibes coming out of this game and the season so far are incredible. And we've talked about it, like, in all seriousness on the pod several times, that the good vibes feed into the results just as much as the results feed into the good vibes. So it's all holistically very important for the success of this team. Jake, I haven't had a chance to, and moving on here, catch the latest episode of the Old Man and the Three podcast hosted by JJ Redick, who apparently had a coaching offer from Joe Mazzulla as he was appointed as a Celtics coach heading into this season. But to sidetrack from that, Derrick White was on the JJ Redick podcast. Jake, you had a chance to catch it. Any notable excerpts that you want to share with us?
Really, it was a fun time all around to see Derrick White, because I feel like and you can see it in the podcast, he's a reserved, he's a chill guy, but it was really cool to, get the full story of his background and his journey to the NBA, etc. But obviously what Celtics fans want to hear about is all the Celtics related kind of stuff that they touched on. And one of the questions, is, how is it playing with Tatum, like being around him, like what's he looks locked in, what's it like this year? And, basically Derrick White's like, all he cares about is winning. It's really cool to care about a guy that's like that level of superstar, that only cares about winning, that doesn't care about his numbers. And Derrick says, even though he's putting up crazy numbers, like he doesn't really care about the numbers that he's putting up. He just wants to win. And the rest of the team just feeds off that. And I'll play the clip here because this is perfect. This is Celtics in its finest.
It feels like so far, everybody has figured out how to carve out their own lane and kind of stick to that. And that's clearly not the case around the league with every team. Is there like a common thread, or is there a glue that allows that to be so simple for you guys?
I just think that, we basically have 5 guys out there that can shoot, pass, and like create a play. So, just trusting. We talk about love and trust a lot. So just trusting that if you make the right play, like kick the ball across, it's going to come back and find you. They show film clips of that all the time. It's like the person that started with the kick ahead ends up with the wide open 3. So, just having that trust that if you make the right play, that next person is going to make the right play as well, and you're going to end up benefiting from it. So, Al's.
He goes on to say how Al's amazing and Sam Hauser's the GOAT. But firstly, watch the interview. He's wearing a hat that says "Be a good person" while talking about loving and trusting his teammates. Like, it's just fantastic. But again, it just kind of reinforces like the full team buy-in on the sharing of the ball, making of the right play. Like, it's not rocket science, but the fact that they're showing in film, I think it's a really smart idea. It's like, hey, you passed the ball here, and look, you're the one who ended up with the shot. You're the one who was able to attack the bended defense, and got a layup at the rim. And then, so to see that was awesome. And I guess the other bit was, JJ was playing golf with with Joe Mazzulla, like the day after the Ime stuff came out, and was talking about how he's feeling about being a head coach, and was super impressed by him, etc. And Derrick White last year when he got traded was talking about hey, Joe, he's the defensive guru, like that's what Will Hardy was telling him, and it's just so interesting for him to say that, and see how Joe Mazzulla has taken this offense from really good to one of the best offenses of all time, but last season was the defensive guru, and by all accounts was kind of like the mastermind behind the Rob Williams roving role. Which it just fills you with more confidence as a Celtics fan for the players, Derrick, Joe Mazzulla. So those are kind of a couple of takeaways before we end up running 2 hours on this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's great. The first thing I do after I edit this podcast for the Celtics blog podcast feed, and if you're not subscribed there, please go ahead and subscribe to the Celtics blog podcast feed, if for no other reason, just to fill our new employers with confidence that they hired the right people. Please go ahead and do that. Plus, you get to listen to a more refined, cut down version of the pod rather than this raw, unedited version on YouTube. Jake, you and I are going to get together on Sunday for the first time ever, somewhere in Sydney, secret location. It's going to be somewhere in Surrey Hills. So if you see a couple of Celtics tragics hanging out, come and say hello. To watch this Warriors game, Saturday night US time, 8:30 p.m., 12:30 p.m. Sunday Aussie time. No Andrew Wiggins. He's out with an adductor injury. He's set to be reevaluated early next week, I think on Monday. The Warriors, their last few games, losses to the Jazz and Pacers. Jake, do those losses matter in this context, or is this matchup to be viewed in a vacuum?
I would definitely view this matchup in a vacuum. The Jazz loss. I mean, there was Steph wasn't playing either. I don't believe, but they were up 4 with like 20 seconds to go, and they just missed free throws. Like it was a really, really bad collapse. The Warriors are kind of in a bad way right now, but I would not like it. It's not 100% that Steph's going to play. If Steph's playing, mate, buckle up, mate. There's no way you and me aren't going to be sitting there sweating.
Oh my god,
holding each other, like going through our PTSD. So yeah, definitely view it as a vacuum. I don't really care that Wiggins isn't playing. I know some people will be like, I wish this matchup was full strength. I don't care. Give me the win in a tough part of our schedule, and we can have a proper rematch in the finals. Like, don't care.
Yeah, I care about the wins, baby. Like, I want to see Draymond have a bad time.
Yes, please.
I want to see him targeted by the Celtics in whatever way they think helps prop up their offense or defense. I would just generally want to see him have a bad day based on, him really triumphing over the Celtics fans, for example, in TD Garden, chanting what we all know they chanted at him during that final series. Wiggins, really, obviously an X factor. He was an X factor in the finals. He's their best wing defender. He can throw himself at either Jay, and as we've seen, the evidence suggests nullify either of them. He's not going to be present, but like you said, Jake, I'm addicted to the wins at this point, man. Like, just give me the win. Wiggins is out, good. Let's beat those guys. It doesn't matter. Time Lord wasn't healthy in the finals, and you don't hear people adding that as a caveat when talking about the Warriors win there and their inevitable championship or eventual championship. So it's fine. Wiggins is out. That's fine. Just give us the win. Despite that, I am very nervous because any game that includes Steph Curry has the potential for him to hit 10 threes from just inside the three-point line, and that's not an exaggeration. So there's a good reason, Jake, why you and I are deciding for that to be the first game that we catch up and watch together, because there's a support network
100%.
that's absolutely needed there. So very, very excited for that one. And I guess I should ask, even though I think we're both very biased here, Jake, who do you predict to win that particular matchup?
The Celtics will be favored in this game. There's no question.
Yeah.
So, with Wiggins out, you can't stop this team. You cannot stop them offensively. Maybe, the only way the Celtics aren't putting up 120 is if they shoot below 35% from 3. And even then, they might still get there. Draymond's going to have a, peak Draymond game in order to, have an impact on slowing this offense down. And Steve Kerr has never been someone that runs up minutes in the regular season. Can't say the same for Joe Mazzulla, who played his guys 40 minutes on a back-to-back in Toronto. I would be surprised if the Celtics don't win this one.
I know that Kuminga has taken pretty solid grasp of the opportunities that he's been given recently, particularly on the defensive end. And as far as who they could throw at the Jays from a wing defense perspective or even a help defense perspective, Kuminga worries me a little.
No.
Maybe I'm grasping at straws here, Jake. Well, what do you got for me?
I like that how you're trying to convince yourself into how the Celtics could lose here, but
I need it out.
They're playing Kuminga because they kind of need Kuminga to play.
Okay.
He has the size and physicality in theory to kind of hang with the Jays. Maybe if he played them in the first half of last year, he would have had a chance when they were more ISO heavy. But the way they're playing with the cutting and the movement, he's can have his hands full. I would imagine foul trouble. That's one of my predictions. Maybe a Kuminga foul trouble.
I hope you're right. I'll buy you a beer when we're hanging out if you're right about that one. Will Al Horford be back? So a quick review of the COVID protocols that were updated prior to this season. So the clause that's relevant is that immediately isolate, so quote, immediately isolate after a positive or inconclusive result, clearance from team physician and league physician required per NBA testing and clearance policy. So we can assume, I suppose, that Al Horford presented or produced a positive test result And now it's really up to him and his, I guess, immune system to present a negative result. And that's not unlikely given the timeline, but really, like, we don't know. We don't know any of the circumstances as to how he came to test positive and how he entered the protocol. So we really don't know, but there's at least half a chance that he's back for this game. Does it matter? Maybe, almost certainly, yes, because how much can we really, Jake, expect out of Blake Griffin in, like, sequential games, right? Like, we've probably pushed him too far at this point.
But we got 2 days off here.
That's true.
So he's,
golf.
you know, it's a warm, you know, a bit warmer out there on the West Coast. But look, don't forget that Al Horford missed game 1 of the conference finals and then played game 2 of the conference finals. So I would have to double check if there was 2 days off between those 2 games. But
That's a good point.
There wouldn't have been 3 days off between games 1 and 2. So the timeline is probably pretty similar. So that means nothing really, but it's maybe an indication that he will be back tomorrow. But I'm just hoping he's not too sick, and it could be, you know, it's just extra rest for the big fella.
Absolutely. Well, look, post-game pod, like 24 hours worth of content to review, and we've gone an hour and 11 minutes. So that's how we like to do it here on First to the Floor.
Yeah, well, there's 2 days off. You got plenty of time before the next Celtics game to listen to it.
Absolutely. We don't apologize for our behavior here at First to the Floor at all. That's going to do it for this one. Quick suggestion, subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel. Wayne Spooney, he's got a new video on Derrick White dropping very soon. Plus, you'll get all of our pods and clips and shorts in your feed. And, of course, subscriber numbers give us that clout when we reach out to guests. And we do, in fact, have a very special guest joining us roughly this time next week who we're very, very excited to announce. Shout out to the guys over at Green with Envy. They'll be back with another pod on this feed on Sunday night. So subscribe to all of their socials if you're not already. And that's it. Jake, love your work, mate. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate. See you on Sunday.
All right. Until next time, go Celtics.